what I wanted to ask you is, you're interviewing these little Mo players, probably their first interviews. They're so proud. And some of them go on to great careers as tennis players. Some of them become D1. Some of them, not. But what is it like for you to, first of all, know you're the first interview and you're making them feel really special, and then to follow them years later, whether it's Taylor Fritz or Coco Gauff, and they must be like, Kaz, I remember. That's got to be the greatest feeling. What is that like, Kaz?
The stars may not always say Kaz. They may get to you earlier than some of the others, but
Right.
they're great people. Someone new. You just want to feel that if I could have this young person smiling, so I try to come down to their level.
Yes, I've seen that, Kaz.
It doesn't take much for me to come
Yeah.
down, but that's the greatest feeling, is to have them just show a smile and laughter. And the last episode that I just been finishing, I came up with this: let's show them smiling, but put the camera zoom in so where it's just, and you'll see this, and that our sites ought to come in and look at that. He would go for that. So it's 5 seconds, another 5 seconds, and it shows some personality in all those kids.
Well, it might be hyperbole, but I honestly can't recall a Kaz interview where the interviewee is not smiling, whether it's Tommy Paul wearing your hat and saying, I'm keeping this hat, whether it's Taylor Fritz or Coco Gauff or just any young person there. Just, you get that mic and it's inside Kaz. I remember seeing a little kid put like an ice pack on your head. You're having a great time.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to see, Kaz.
Well, I'll tell you, no one will ever beat Coco Gauff. She's 14 years old. The event was at Boca West, beautiful location. The event was a wild card. They had it 5 different countries: Melbourne, London, et cetera, and she wins the girls 18. So it was just 18 and under. She's 14.
Wow.
My Bob Gray said, it's easier for him to go to the kid and say, will you give us a bump inside? You're inside tennis with the Kaz. So he goes to her and says, say your name. Hi, I'm Coco Gauff, and you're inside tennis with the Kaz.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many on tour players can't put it together. We have to practice it a bit. I have to hold the sign up sometimes. She knocked it out. And the French Tennis Federation said, oh, stop. Do you think she could have 3 sponsors in there? The watch, Rolex, and another. She said, yeah, I'll do it. She knocked it out.
Awesome.
And I go to her coach at the time and I said, I can't believe the maturity that Coco has. Was that a gift? Does she work on it? He said, we work on it every day, knowing that she's going to be at a level where she wants to be able to handle media and not cave in. That's how good she was.
It's extraordinary having interviewed her in a group setting. Her poise is incredible. Her thoughtfulness is incredible. And it was certainly on exhibit after Aryna Sabalenka had some less than flattering things to say after Coco beat her at the French Open. And Coco just kind of said, she was given the bait. Sabalenka said ABC, and Coco said, I'm sure it was the heat of the moment, and that she may regret some of the things she said. And that was it. And I thought, what a dream. Don't take the bait. Don't become clickbait for the paper, huge feud developing between Coco Gauff and Sabalenka. Who needs that? And I thought, and I've met her parents. They're
Oh,
wonderful. So you got to
hilarious.
think, and her grandmother is, the greatest. So I've got to figure just raised correctly and gets it,
Absolutely
Yeah.
right. And the world loves her, and it's
Yes.
well earned. And when she won her first slam, all the kids, I happened to be at a tournament they had. It was nice. We did a salute to her, and they could have not been more supportive. And the idea was, hey, I'm playing the same tournament today that she played before she wins the slam. So they respect what she's put into it, and
I
the
had
whole the little Mo.
I,
They do that for all the players.
I had to laugh because Coco recently on social media had this tiny French Open trophy that they gave her, and I was thinking, compare that to the little Mo trophy she's got. Which one looks more impressive? Do you want the little tiny French Open one or the giant little Mo? So but anyway, Kaz, you mentioned Nick Bollettieri, a force of nature. You guys had a great rapport. I watched the video where he was giving you a hard time about something. He said, I think you asked him. He goes something like, Kaz, if you ever learn to talk, you can do an
Yeah,
interview, and you're like, and it was funny. Tell
that
us about the force
that
of
cost
nature.
me $2,000 to get him to say that. No, he didn't do that to me. But what a nice piece. When you learn how to talk a little bit better, we'll do another. So you saw that in
It
the
was
tribute.
great. It was
Uh,
great. And so I got
uh,
to ask you, it's hard to encapsulate and talk about a tennis promoter, talk about a lover of tennis, talk about a lover of people and paying it forward. Can you talk about Nick a little bit?
Absolutely. I must have run into 200 plus people that he had coached or had a strong identity with. I've never heard anything close to a negative sound on Nick Bollettieri. Not at all. Now, we first had some fun. It was IMG where we were, and Nick was there, and Jimmy Arias was there. There was the finals that day. Who's in the finals? Andy Roddick. So I'm doing the play by play, and they're doing the color. And Nick says, "What do we call this guy? Is he Andy or is it Andrew?" I know one thing. I'm going to say to him, "You better get a coach that starts getting a little more discipline in your game. Start behaving better."
Nice.
But he was right on top of it. And of course, Jimmy was there. We all had fun. It was anytime you got the two of them together, uh, it was tennis history.
Yeah, Jimmy Arias, I'm a huge fan as a coach, as a broadcaster, as a player. I,
Great
I, I, I
broadcast.
ran into Jimmy, and I think he was the first professional match I ever saw in person was him against Lendl, and I couldn't believe how hard Jimmy was hitting that ball. I was stunned, and he was always very nice, very personable.
Uh,
And I think he's a great broadcaster. He brings a lot to the table.
his insight is right there. And he's working at IMG, so
Sure.
he's not on tour with the guys and calling matches for Tennis Channel. They call him in on the big ones,
Hmm.
but he knows what he's talking about. And you never question, does he really know that about what they're doing? Yes, he does. Yes.
Yeah, and he communicates it well too. It's one thing to know tennis, but to be able to communicate it to people who don't quite know it the same way is impressive.
I'm almost coming out of my seat, crawling out of my seat. We're at the US Open, and I have tickets from IMG. They were from Monica, but they were going to give them to me. I didn't get the tickets. They didn't show, and my family had come in and no tickets. I see Jimmy Arias, maybe 100 feet down the road. I said, Jimmy, IMG didn't bring the tickets. He said, I got some extras. How many do you need? I said, 4. He said, yeah, I got 10. Here, how many days do you want? Can you believe that?
You know,
That's Jimmy Arias right there.
knowing the little bit I know about Jimmy, I absolutely could see that happening.
Yes.
A good guy. So that's a great story. And recently, and it's a tough segue, Kaz, but recently Coach Don Paitrine passed away, perhaps best known as, Mary Jo Fernandez's coach. And I did have some contact with Mary, who wrote, first of all, Mary
That was
Jo, one of the
oh,
classiest
Fritz,
people, player, coach, a broadcaster, and writer. Because she sent me was a text or an email that about Don that was just, I mean, it was emotional about how Don had coached her and what it meant for her, for Don to have coached her son Nico and her daughter, and it come full circle, and how much he was a part of their lives. And Mary Jo's pretty high up in the tennis food
absolutely.
chain with her husband, Tony Godsick, and boy,
Yes.
you'd never know it. I mean, you talk about humble and sweet and nice. She did a podcast for me and was so forthcoming. And I
Well,
know she
John,
did. I know she didn't have the time to do it, but she did it anyway. And I think it was mostly because of Jim, but she did it. And but I'm a huge fan. But getting back to Don and anything about Coach Paitrine.
well, he was as pure as they come because his drive was to give himself to the kids and to make them feel that he actually wants to work hard with them. He wants to give them time and coach them. I don't think anybody could be more genuine in making a kid feel I'm behind you all the way and know that he really means it. That's the reputation I heard about him, and I know it's very true. He's an absolute sporting gentleman who happened to be a great tennis coach.
And a lot of the themes about the people that you admire and that admire you, cause admire you for paying it forward. So, what are some of the causes or events that you've been to and continue to go to that mean a lot to you? I watched your interviews at a recent event with Chris Fowler and
Oh
Dick
yes,
Vitale, and
yes.
you're always at the events for the kids, and you're always doing the interviews, and people are just, my goodness, they're so glad to talk to you. So, talk about some of the most important events or charities for you, and what means the most to you.
Well, it's hard not to get involved locally with Dick Vitale, and Dick Vitale has the gala. Dick and I go back because my oldest daughter and his daughter competed against one another on the junior circuit, played somewhat against one another D1 in college. So Dick sees me out in Tucson on New Year's Eve, and he said, Cos, we don't know one another that well yet, but uh, I'm mad at you. You destroyed my Easter because
Yeah.
my daughter never saw anybody hitting backhand, one hand slices, and she couldn't handle it. So, what do you think I ought to do? Should she add that one hand slice to her game? And he said, oh, by the way, I got us all down for dinner New Year's Eve. But Dick is the best. Now, Dick has run, and I think it'll start back up where they were doing at a college clay court event, men and women at Lakewood Ranch Country Club. And he would, the opening night was at one of the country clubs on property, the lodge. But then on Saturday night, he would have them all over at his home.
Oh, wow.
You got to try to imagine this picture that's taking place. There's a corner of the house where there's a wall going east, there's one going south, and the kids were in there, and Dick's out in front, and Nick's out in front. They can't go anywhere. They can't walk away. They are trapped. They would keep them there for 45 minutes, and then it would get to a point where Dick would say, hey, do you think Nick ought to talk about his 6 wives all the time? It may not be nice for those kids to hear that.
That's awesome.
We had to vote on that one. But what he's given the game has been remarkable. Remarkable. And I enjoyed getting to know his daughters and their kids, Dick's grandchildren. He's the perfect grandfather by all means, and father.
That's awesome.
Lorraine was a tennis mom, but just kind of stayed seated or in the car before needed to get involved. So the Vitals are very special. You know, Dick never eats at home during the evening. He's out every night with Lorraine at some restaurant.
Wow.
And he's got his arm with the magazines and the books, and they're on the table. So he's working it, baby.
Love it. Kaz,
yeah.
What are some of your most memorable interviews, good or bad? Because we all have maybe an interview that didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go, but I've heard some very funny stories from some great journalists about some of their first interviews. So Leslie Visser tells a very funny story about interviewing Hannah Monlikova, where she's sent out there by Brent Musburger. I love this story. And he says, go ask her, go talk to her. And she says, and Leslie says, to what do you attribute this big win? And she says, it's my couch. And Leslie thinks for a while and thinks, oh, she's got some nice furniture, and says, where did you get the furniture, the couch? And of course, Hannah Monlikova says, my coach. So I figure if a world legendary journalist like Leslie Visser has that happen, Kaz, any funny interviews gone awry, or any great stories along those lines? The good ones, the bad, the ugly?
Well, kind of. I'll start with this one. I had known Lindsay Davenport because she and Kimberly, same age, same tournaments, the whole bit. So we're sitting 15 minutes or so, nonstop conversation. And then I stood up and said, all right, well, you ready to start it? She knew I was going to interview her, but then nothing was coming out. The difference, I would ask, and 5 minutes before that, but boy, has she come a long way now. Sure. And the greatest story I'll have about the family is their son, Jagger. That is,
sure, Jagger Leach.
Yes, with the father, John. So we're at the Little Mo, and Patrick is there with his daughters.
Patrick McEnroe.
There's only one Patrick.
Sorry.
Oh, now that's the guy I like to tell stories about him because he's so genuine. I'll give you one.
Love
later.
Patrick McEnroe. Yeah.
I know. So Lindsay's there, John's there. I talked to the son, and he tells me, I said, well, how did you find out about the Little Mo? He said, oh, I was reading in the newspaper, and all of a sudden I saw it. So I go to Lindsay, and I said, he's 7 years old. He's reading the newspaper. She said, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he did read the newspaper. So he saw that 6-foot trophy, and he says, I got to have one. Gotta have it. So John and Lindsay got him in. I'm talking to Lindsay about what's it like. Your mother was an Olympian volleyball player. You played everything with the Fed Cup, and now you're watching. She said, it's god awful. I almost throw up all the time, and I'm looking for excuses for John. You have to come to this event so you can watch. I can't do it. And she's saying, look at my nails. And she opened right up on that.
No, it's awesome because I watched Mary Jo interacting with Nico, yelling Nico Pico, but Harold Solomon's there and she's there just like any other tennis mom. And Lindsay Davenport I saw outside, just like any other tennis mom. You want to leave them alone. They got their hats. They're focused. You don't want to bother them. But they're tennis moms, tennis dads doing their thing.
People. Anyway, Patrick's daughter, Melissa, played with Lindsay's son, and they won the mixed doubles.
Wow.
Little Mo. So all kinds of good stories. And John tells me how Jagger was an excellent performer in 2 sports. I said, which one first? Quarterback. Football.
Wow.
I know. Doesn't happen often.
During, Frank Veltri's Central Park in Plantation, as you know, was hosted an Orange Bowl. And I happened to be hitting at Sunrise Tennis Center. And next to me is a really good junior. And I'm thinking the older person he's hitting with is hitting phenomenally well. I'm noticing both. It was Jagger hitting with John, and they could have been, again, more humble. I said, hello, you guys are good. And, well, yeah, we're playing in the, but it was very calm and very, very low key. Kaz, go ahead.
John is the same. He is.
Yeah, I got the impression.
He handles everything well. He gives more notoriety to Jagger and certainly his wife, Lindsay, who's out there a lot more, but he's a prince.
Yeah, I got that impression. He was a super nice guy when I met him. And Kaz, on another note, well, thank you, Kaz. I'm trying to segue. I'm trying to calmly segue, smoothly segue, as you would, Kaz. But you had a very serious bike accident, I want to say around July 2024, in that range. And I hope that's some.
No, and I'm fine with it. I loved riding a bike. It was a oversized cruiser-sized tire,
right.
So I was racing.
Because I wanted to just keep it. I just wanted to ask you just one thing about it, if that's okay. And sure. That was really, you seem like the type of individual. So bear with me. I'm on a stretch here, who is always happy to give of yourself and help other people. You don't seem like you're the kind of person who wants to be helped and taken care of. And I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for you to be relying on your son, your daughters, your wife. So what was that like for you to kind of have to do that with the seriousness of what happened to you? And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kaz, but I really wanted to focus on that.
No, not at all. I had no idea what happened. I was hit, but luckily I had my cell phone. There were 3 different cars with women. They all stopped, got out. They saw the phone. They were able to find my name, my phone, and then called Carolyn. She was there. It happened a block and a half. She was there in 2 minutes walking down, and I'm lying in the street with the bike. So I knew nothing until I arrived at the hospital and woke up. Carolyn was there. She told me what happened, and it didn't startle me that I screamed, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh." Next thing, we looked at one another, and almost the other said, "It could have been worse. I could have been paralyzed. I could have died, and we were lucky. We were lucky." So
now that sounds like the cause, by the way. Like anybody else would be like, "Why did this happen to me?" And the cause looks up and says, "Could have been worse.
Could have been worse." But I sometimes we do things that we are proud we've done. So I was very proud that I never thought of saying, why me, God? Why me? Why? I didn't. And a voice came a week or two later saying, I wanted to remind you that you were very, very strong about how you said that. Why not me? The worst thing I wanted to have happen is that uh, I would feel, why was it me? And have our maker be looking down, hearing that. That's not what he wants his people to say or do. So that was a major concern, and I tried to follow it from there on. And it's amazing the number of people that ask me, and I tell the story, have two or three friends that the same thing happened to them.
Wow.
One of them may have died. One of them may have been paralyzed. It's happening out there. And I don't know what can be done, but those narrow bike paths are too slender. I talked to one woman that was riding her bike with her husband on his bike on the sidewalk. Well, it's for pedestrians, but they ride the bike because it's safer. A car ran over the curb,
Oh,
hit her. She goes up, comes flat down on the hood of the car. And the guy was a doctor. He said, we'll be back. We're going down to see our attorney. Holy goodness. Didn't ask how.
wow.
And I saw her at a pickleball event, and she was perfectly fine, but she experienced that.
Well,
So,
Kaz, you're incredible. I guess I should start here. You know, we're getting close to the end, even though I could talk to you forever. But what are your future goals, hopes, and dreams, Kaz? How do you see things playing out? What's a good day for you, and what are you looking forward to?
well, I want to keep doing the little mows. I just need to get my segments in sooner. That's all. They take time to do.
Sure.
And we'll be doing a little more on TV. And I was going to talk to you and also Matt about doing more of the older shows with a look back because they're all done, but they have stories on there with Monica and with Carling Bassett, with everyone. So I want to stay involved with that.
Great.
It's nice to be involved, and it's fun doing all that stuff.
It's fun to watch. I mean, I love tennis history, and I honestly, Kaz, I knew you were a great communicator and great at what you did. What I didn't know was how much you knew, which is ridiculous, about the X's and Y's of tennis. And I listened to a podcast that you did, which was riveting about this. One of the interesting questions was, how do I increase my offensive prowess on the tennis court? And you did this whole discussion about it's not necessarily about power. It's about variety, and went into a whole discussion about how you can be aggressive with drop shots and lobs. And I had never thought of tennis like that. It was fascinating. It really
Well,
was.
how many golf clubs do you have in your golf bag? And you use almost every club, at least 70% of those clubs. The same thing exists in tennis. Once that ball gets low, you can't flatten out. You've got to come up and over. But how about doing it as you're moving on the run, a slice, and make an approach shot out of it? When I speak with other teaching pros and directors, what percentage of members can hit an approach shot? And they shake their head. Well, unless he's played through the juniors or is extraordinary and knows what to do 10% most. And these are the guys that played before. But those are shots they need to make. I'm not trying to speak out of my level of analyzing, but so many of our players on tour, once they're in that service box, they're going to miss more than they missed back at the baseline because they don't have the softer touch to come under the ball. Now, I talked to this girl. She was 8 years old, lava down. Last year won the slam 8 and under. So she won that big
Sure.
6-foot trophy. We were going back and forth, and we were talking about. Incidentally, she is so beyond her age with intelligence. We talked about different shots. Do you ever feel that if you had another shot to hit, you might be doing better? She said, all the time. I said, really? I said, drop shots? And she said, I love drop shots. I said, droppers? Oh, I love those. And I said, well, I'm going to test you. So when you're hitting a drop shot, tell me what part of the racket leads, the bottom or the top? And she said, bottom. I said, okay, all right. So the bottom part. How about if you want to slice the ball, is your pinky leading or is your thumb leading? The little finger, she said. I said, are you coming over or under? And I did that. I said, well, now you're ready to teach our members, our viewers, a drop shot. And she was amazing. She'll be there.
Well, it's great stuff. And you created 2 instructional videos, Master Your Tennis Motor Memory, Fundamentally Sound Tennis. And it was another fascinating. Go ahead.
The areas that I did, the one, Master Your Tennis Motor Memory.
Well, you talked about motor memory on one of those podcasts, and you had the statistic about how many times a day or a week you worked on something, and I'm thinking, I never, you can work on it in the office, you can work at it, in your backyard. So you had this whole statistic about motor memory, which I had never heard.
I did. I got it from where? Where do you think?
Research, I'm guessing, right? From Gauff.
Gauff had that, and I respect Gauff.
Sure.
Mastering your motor memory is reproducing it 60 times a day, 30 days. 1,800 times makes it more or less a repeatable habit. And they can do this at home. You could do it. Actually, you stopped at the red light. You can practice shoulder to the chin so that when you're swinging, you're not, and the golfer knows this, and the better tennis player is getting this. You're not trying to hit it. You're trying to do something to the ball. So all you're trying to do is to actually have the shoulder touch the chin, and then you're not afraid to swing. But you've got to do that 60 times a day, 30 days, to where that's automatic. That was my stuff. This is Vic Brady. Put a ball under your armpit and swing. And if it doesn't come out, you're not opening up enough. Put a ball in the armpit, swing, and it's got to drop down. Well, people can do that. They may not swing, but that makes them learn how to swing. Just mastering the opening of the armpit. So all those strokes have methods to accomplish that. And swinging is so much about being effortless in the backswing on the serve. So if you have somebody start at the neck, at the throat, and by the time it drops down, your hand's so loose that it's dropped to the grip, now you serve. So there's no pressure taking it back. If you wanted to slide down to the grip, what did you do? Loosened it up, and it came right into the swing. So we'll put a few of those on uh, Florida tennis also.
Absolutely. And it was one other thing that stuck. Oh, you don't like the word topspin. Can you explain that?
Um,
You
did
were
I
talking. You
did
were
I say
talking. Well, you were talking about how
uh,
people would overhit if you told them it was topspin, and you used. I'm trying to remember the word was putting gravity under the ball or putting height under the ball. It was interesting. So we'll get to that down the road. But you had some very fixed thoughts and things about what
well,
not to tell people as much as what to tell people, because you don't want people, I guess, overthinking and trying to do too much with the ball, versus, just
well, I think that one can over topspin, and at the highest level where you have the superb athletes, they can do that stuff. But some of the less superb athletes might be better hitting a higher percentage. And if you hit a little flatter, you're going to hit the ball more in the center of the strings. And then it's just a matter of when you decide to pull up. And the more you pull up and the earlier you pull up, the more spin you have on the ball.
right. You
So,
talked about how the different pacing of the swing, how it should speed up and be at its fastest, I believe, when you make contact with the ball.
very good, very good. Yeah, I'll ask people what should be the fastest part of your swing.
Exactly.
You take it back, and they'll say, "Yeah, I want to get it back early." Well, all right, you get it back too early, it's over. You can't speed up from here. You want to go back as slowly as you can and let it speed up as fast as you can at the end. Uh, it's fun to teach fundamentals, and it's not that you want it boring, but the golfer has more respect for fundamentals. When you go into the men's locker room with golf, they're talking golf fundamentals. In tennis, they're talking about, oh, he caught six bad lines today.
Great, great point,
That,
Kaz. Kaz, I got to ask
yeah,
you this: what words of wisdom do you have for anyone wondering if tennis is a sport that they should try? They're thinking about it, but maybe they think it's too difficult. It's a like. What are some of the words of wisdom you have for anyone wondering if they should try tennis? Whether it's just how it brings families together, how it's been a fabric of your life, but what would you tell someone who's thinking, I may want to try tennis, but I'm not sure?
well, I think with tennis, uh, the exercise is there, and you're part of the USTA, and those manuals that come out, they still say tennis is the best exercise for losing weight, staying in shape. So that's certainly one reason to play. The other is that the the movement from right to left gives you rhythm, gives you timing, and it's taking some pride in being able to swing. And it's not hit the ball, it's what exercise are you trying to perform? Are you trying to get shoulder to touch the chin? Are you trying to get ball dropping out? Are you trying to make the catch in the left hand? If you want to really get it, swing, catch it, and let go of the right. So the right's not interfering. So things just become more rhythmic, and it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah, and you touched on it, Kaz, as part of the USTA and the USTA Florida, we talk about the health benefits. I think a close to 10 years extended lifespan, but for many people, including myself, it's the mental health aspect of you're out there. Just one thing you're focusing on is just the act of playing tennis. It clears the cobwebs. I call my tennis coach. I have a tennis coach, Kaz. Same guy for 20 years. Don't laugh. But I call him my life coach. We laugh about it because boy, we have fun every Sunday just talking about life and hitting the ball, and it's the greatest thing. It's the greatest.
I think one good piece of advice that every two people should be doing, they should become the Bagel Boys. Who are the Bagel Boys?
Well, that was Harold Solomon and Eddie
Yeah.
Dibbs, right? Yeah.
The Bagel Boys
Yeah.
was their warm up, and they never did anything else until they could hit 300 ground stroke to one another before they did anything with the volley or started to play. But do you know how that would help the average player to learn to hit into the strike zone? And sometimes some players feel, well, he's not as good as I am. She's not as good as I am. That's okay. Your job is to make her be good by hitting it to her strike zone. Is that helping you? Heck yeah. Why do most tennis pros, teaching pros, have smooth, steady shots they can hit without missing, correct?
Correct.
Spots. Well, they repeated it. And the boys, the Bagel Boys, 300. I've seen them do that.
I've been lucky enough to do those Legends clinics with Murphy Jensen, and I asked Murphy, I said, I presume every racket you get has a little setting on it called customer appreciation tennis, or CAT, or customer oriented tennis, because when we play you guys, you give us the illusion that we're much better than we are. And he started laughing. He said, that's kind of what we do. And he talked about how playing his father-in-law, who's, he said it wasn't that good, but his father-in-law would call up Luke and say, I just beat Murphy. And, the guy was terrible, and Murphy would hold his head like he doesn't get it. But, it was funny, playing Mike and Bob and having them volley, and then Bob goes, we're done now. And all of a sudden, boom, and it's okay. That's what's happening here. You're playing at 1.5%. I'm playing at 100%. So Murphy got a good kick out of that. It was like a little click on the racket that you guys have, like you, Koz. You can make us look real. Sometimes somebody will see me hitting at a lesson. Oh, you look great. You're improving. And I said, just wait until we play. Let's
give you some credit. You're exchanging the same ball many times, right? 6, 8, 12.
I'm trying, Koz, yeah.
He can only do that. Your coach, if you get it somewhat in his strike zone. Oh. So you have to look at it that way.
Koz, I love that. You're making me feel better now, Koz.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you do. I love that.
You could hit him at his shoes or at his head, but you're picking up on the rhythm. And that's why he can do it. And that's why you're able to take his good ball and hit it back.
I did not realize this podcast was going to focus on how good a player I've become. But Koz, thank you. Koz, we covered a lot of ground, but I feel like we only scratched the surface here. I could listen to you for 10 hours plus. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to be grateful if you'd consider coming back, because, all right, that's what I needed to hear, because so much more ground to cover. Thank you so much for your time, Koz. Any final thoughts, Koz, before I work on the sign off? Any final thoughts you have?
Well, yes, I think I love Mary Carrillo. Just one hardworking, committed journalist and tennis player. So this is unbelievable, because I was doing the local show, and I spoke with her husband, and I got down there. We did the interview, and my first question to her was, Mary, we know what it felt like when you and John were on Court Central and you win the French Open. Now you're in the booth at the US Open. What's it like being in the booth? Well, Koz, back then we were the best of the friends. We had mutual respect. But when I get in the booth with John, I lose that. I don't have that respect. So for some reason, I went down to the Naveen Masters, which is in Naples, and I asked John that. I said, John, will we ever see you call a women's tennis match? No, I said, have you ever called a women's tennis match? And he said, no. I said, will you ever? And he said, no, I don't think so. I was in the delivery room and I've seen 6 kids being born, but do I know what it's like to give birth? And that's, he said, and that's how we all got it started. So the two of them, 20 years later, I exchanged that story and they both laughed about it.
I love that, Kaz. And what a great final story. A huge thank you from me, Adam Ross, personally, from Florida Tennis Magazine, for taking the time. I want our listeners and our viewers to know that we just published our July-August 2025 issue.
Yes.
It's available at by subscription. It's available at tennis clubs. It's available where they buy their tennis gear. Our podcasts are available on our Florida Tennis YouTube channel. Please subscribe and click on podcasts. You can listen to all the podcasts. You can enjoy Florida Tennis on Facebook. Thank you, Kaz. On Instagram, we have a blog with news and updates, and that's on our website at www.floridatennis.com. But Kaz, thanks again. This has been a treat, and it's only the beginning, Kaz. This is not over. I love you. I'll say what Murphy said to me. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, Kaz. So thank you. You're a force of nature. You're the best.
You make it easy to love you. So here we are.
Thanks, Kaz.
I had a blast.
I had a blast. Be well, Kaz, and thanks for your time. Have a great night. See you soon.
Look forward to that. Say hi to Matt and the team.
Of course. Thanks, Kaz.
You guys have gone major league on the web. Major league.
Thanks, Kaz. We have a lot of good, dare I say, young people. We've brought in some younger who are a little bit more social media savvy, who have really upped the game. Well, we'll always have this. Jim's Legacy is this beautiful magazine for people like me, and I love having the hard copy. I can't get enough of this. But we've obviously expanded our let's call it the Florida tennis ecosystem, which you're a huge part of, Kaz, with your incredible videos, with your enthusiasm, with your writing, with your mentorship. We love you, Kaz. So not just me, but we all love you in Florida tennis, and the tennis world loves you, Kaz. Be well. Have a great night.
You're very kind. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Kaz. Thank you too. Thanks, Kaz.